Happy hump day to you as we reach the midway point of the week. And on today's Locked On Blue Jay podcast, we deep dive tonight's pitching matchup. It's a doozy, Jose Berrios versus Yu Darvish. Plus, we put together a team, a good one too, of players who played for the Padres and the Blue Jays. Blue Jays have played the Padres, fewer than any team in all of baseball. But ironically, these two franchises have shared a ton of talent over the years. We're going to have some fun with that. And in the last segment, we start to look at trade deadline strategy and targets.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, friends. Craig Ballard, Locked On Blue Jays. Yes, indeed. Been locked on the Toronto Blue Jays pretty much my entire life, ever since I can remember. Anyway, I can tell you Toronto Blue Jay baseball is a big deal to me. Toronto Blue Jay baseball is a big deal to my family as well. I thank you for spending part of your day talking Toronto Blue Jay baseball with me. And, of course, the Locked On Blue Jay podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I'm just absolutely thrilled to mention that the Locked On Blue Jay podcast is your only daily Toronto Blue Jay podcast as well. Yes, indeed. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Reminder that all the Blue Jay action this season is available for you to take in on SiriusXM. And to the everydayers watching the Locked On Blue Jay podcast on the Locked On Blue Jay podcast YouTube page, hello, thank you for that. Please hit that like, leave that comment, and hit that subscribe if you haven't already. And to the everydayers making the Locked On Blue Jay podcast your first podcast listen every day, hello, and thank you to you as well. Please do hit that 5-star rating. Good-looking and intriguing pitching matchup tonight as Jose Berrios and the Toronto Blue Jays host Yu Darvish and the San Diego Padres. Let's get into that. Jose Berrios on the mound. La Maquina, hope I'm saying that right. I think I am, for the Toronto Blue Jays tonight. 8-6 on the season, 3.41 ERA. Jose Berrios last season had a 5.27 ERA. It was the worst in the league. This season, he's sitting in the top 10 in the American League for ERA. Are you absolutely kidding me? Have we loved what we've seen from Jose Berrios? Again, worst ERA in baseball in the league last year. His 3.41 ERA right now, that's on pace to be the best of his career. Is that improvements? Is that improvements? My goodness, you're going from the worst ERA in the league to top 10 and on pace for your career best? Wow. And Jose Berrios getting a career best, I mean, that's saying something, right? This isn't some Johnny-come-lately pitcher. He's been in the league for a while. He established himself as a very good pitcher. So to be on pace after having the worst ERA, now you're on pace for your best ERA ever, and you're in the top 10 in your league. Well, I mean, the kudos are pouring in and need to be pouring in for Jose Berrios, what we've seen from him so far in 2023. His last 13 starts, the Blue Jays have won 10 of those 13 starts. The Blue Jays are on a 10-3 run with Jose Berrios, and that includes the Blue Jays this season now are 6-2 at Rogers Center when Berrios starts. Since the Toronto Blue Jays acquired Jose Berrios in 2021 at that trade deadline, he's made 30 starts at Rogers Center. Blue Jays are 23-7 in those starts. I mean, is that good? Wow. Let's look at the 7 losses with Berrios on the mound at Rogers Center. The Blue Jays scored 1, 2, 0, 2, 0, 0, 2. Are you kidding? A 1-run average. They average 1 run per game in those 7 losses. So basically, when Jose Berrios has been on the Rogers Center mound, repping the Toronto Blue Jays, and the offense does anything, the Jays offense could even do that pathetic thing they do with Kevin Gausman, where they only get 3 runs every game. Go ahead. Because if Berrios is on the mound and the offense does anything, the Blue Jays have won that game since acquiring Jose Berrios at the 2021 trade deadline. Very, very, very impressive. Oh, I was hitting my microphone there. Sorry. Now, the Blue Jays have not played the Padres in ages. I know last night, but prior to this series. But there are several Padres that have faced Jose Berrios in the past, and he's done well against them. The Padres he'll face tonight are combined 13 for 56. That's just a .232 batting average with 3 home runs in there against Jose Berrios. Now, Manny Machado, he's the exception here. Manny Machado has hit Jose Berrios. Machado's 5 for 12 with a home run against Jose Berrios. So the rest of the Padres tonight combined, they're just 8 for 44 domination, right, for Jose Berrios. But we're going to have to watch that Manny Machado at bat for sure. In the past, Berrios has dominated Gary Sanchez from his New York Yankee days. He's dominated Xander Bogaerts from his Bo Sox days. And it's a real shame. I mean, it's not a real shame. It's great to see. I'm sure you saw the Padres yesterday. They released Rougned Odor. So if you're planning on hoping to be able to boo Odor on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday with the Padres in town, that opportunity did go out the window. But still, Rougned Odor just 2 for 19 with 5 strikeouts versus Jose Berrios. That's how much we hate Odor, right? He's not even part of this game. He's not even in the mix anymore. If he's just 2 for 9 against the Blue Jay pitcher, I have to bring it up, right? I mean, Rougned Odor is a 4-letter word in the Toronto Blue Jay fan base, and deservedly so. Jose Berrios not only on pace for his best ERA ever, but he's also on pace for his best WAR since 2019. Again, I'm going to say, have we seen a turnaround from La Maquina from 2022 to 2023? Very impressive. How about the mound opponent? Well, that's fellow veteran righty, Yu Darvish. Yu Darvish checks in today at 6-6 with a 4.65 ERA, 4-3 on the road, but a 5.52 ERA on the road. One thing to watch tonight is Yu Darvish this season. He has been completely dominant the first time through the batting order. But wow, we're seeing left, right, and center. Teams are making adjustments the second and third time they see him, and they are getting to Yu Darvish as the game goes on. So we'll keep an eye on that tonight for the Blue Jays. For Yu Darvish, this will be his 6th career start ever at the Rogers Center. A really neat 2.67 ERA in the previous 5 starts at Rogers Center. But those starts were ages ago. He was a Texas Ranger, so not a lot of recent success or either not a lot of recent experience for Yu Darvish on this mound. Certainly has never pitched here, of course, with the new with the new dimensions. The Yu Darvish will be on extra days rest, and it is worth noting his best games this season have been on extra days rest, so maybe a glass half empty thing there. Yu Darvish, wow, what can you say about this guy? He throws the kitchen sink at you. Any pitch, whatever pitch ails you, man, Yu Darvish has got it in his arsenal. Now, in particular, his 4-seamer this season and his slider have been hit really hard. The 4-seamer's been hit pretty well. The slider's been rocked. His curveball and his splitter, now these are a couple pitches that have been completely unhittable. So if you're the Blue Jays tonight, you're in the box against Yu Darvish. You need to have a game plan. Yes, you need to have a plan of attack, but need to be really zoned in on reading the spin coming out of his hand. If you read the spin as the curve or the splitter, man, you're best to lay off it because you're probably not going to have success. If you see that it's the 4-seamer or the slider, get ready to go ahead and pounce. Get ready to go ahead and attack. In particular, because we've seen Darvish, hang a bunch of sliders this season. For the Blue Jays, you have to be ready to pounce on that pitch tonight. George Springer has been particularly dominant in his career against Yu Darvish. 9 for 22. That's a 409 batting average. And 3 of those 9 hits for George Springer were Springer dingers. I don't have the guts to go all the way to predict a leadoff Springer dinger today because, again, Yu Darvish has been really good in the first time through the order, but that second time through the order, so a third or a fourth inning Springer dinger, yeah, I could see that happening tonight. Brandon Belt from his National League West days, right? San Diego Padres versus San Francisco Giants. Belt has a lot of experience against Yu Darvish. 6 for 18 lifetime. That's a 333 batting average. 2 of those 6 hits were home runs. And, of course, you already know where I'm going with this, right? It's Brandon Belt. So what am I going to say next? Of course, he's got a bunch of walks in there, right? That's what Brandon Belt does. Belt's on-base percentage against Yu Darvish is a very impressive 429. Brandon Belt gets on base, right? That's what we're learning about this veteran. This guy gets on base. Dalton Varsho. Now, he also has a lot of experience against Yu Darvish from the NL West days, right? San Diego Padres versus Arizona Diamondbacks. And everydayers will know, my gosh, we rack our brains constantly, deep diving the pitching matchups, looking at the ballparks. We're looking left, right, and center for something that's going to be a glass half full that gets us excited that, hey, this could be the thing that turns around Dalton Varsho's offense. Well, Yu Darvish ain't it. Yu Darvish doesn't have the cure for what ails Dalton Varsho struggling bad at the plate. Dalton Varsho hitting just 205 versus righties this season. Puke emoji. And versus Yu Darvish, 4 for 21. Oof. Coming up on the Locked On Blue Jay podcast, going to have some fun as we take a look at a team that we could put together of players who were once Blue Jays and once Padres. Again, I mean, including yesterday, these two organizations, these two franchises have only ever played 16 games against each other. For the Blue Jays, that's by far their low, not by far, but it is their lowest against any other opponent. Yet, ironically, so many players have repped the Jays and the Padres on the big league level. So I thought it'd be fun to put together a team of ex-Jays and ex-Padres. Now, first, I wanted to mention an exciting new sponsor we have here, Dave. Finances can be intimidating. That's why you need Dave. Dave can make managing your money so much easier with an interest-free extra cash, trademark, advance. Fee-free goal tracking, easy for me to say, fee-free goal tracking, and easy ways to find side hustle to make money. Dave is a banking app that is leveling the financial playing field. When you download Dave, you could get up to 500 in 5 minutes or less, no credit check, no late fees. It's all part of the Dave Extra Cash trademark account. Advance the money you need with no interest and then settle up later. You can even rebuild your credit if and when you settle up on time. Millions have already downloaded the Dave app to make their finances easier. So if you're in a pinch, you get the help you need by downloading Dave. Download Dave today at dave.com/MLB. That's dave.com/MLB. And you could get up to 505 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Eligibility criteria and instant transfer fees apply. Banking services provided by Evolve, member FDIC. Go to dave.com/MLB and get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less when you download Dave. For terms, visit dave.com/legal. Oh boy, I hope you enjoyed this part. I had a lot of fun putting this together. Again, I just think it's so ironic how many players. Wait till you see the team that we're putting together here of players who have played for the Blue Jays and the Padres, even though these two franchises have, almost no history on the field playing each other, right? Again, the last time these two franchises were together was back in 2019, and before that it was 2016. Like it is super few and far between for these teams getting together on the field. But I'm just amazed at how many players, good, but you wait till you see the teams we're going to put together. Good players have played for both organizations. Let's start with, did you know that Blue Jay media personality Kevin Barker, Hazel May's husband, did you know Kevin Barker played for the Blue Jays and the Padres? So did Pete Walker. How about that? Pete Walker pitched for the Padres and the Blue Jays. I mean, and for me, I'm already intrigued here. And the intrigue gets even more when you mention that there's some there's some Canadian content as well, as Paul Quantrill pitched for the Padres and the Blue Jays, and Matt Stairs hit bombs for the Padres and the Blue Jays. So let's make our team here. Now, first base and second base, Fred McGriff, Roberto Alomar, sure. Now, we're not going to deep dive them yet. In the outfield, of course, you have Joe Carter. At shortstop, we could have Tony Fernandez. That major trade between the Padres and the Blue Jays, of course, is worthy of a deep dive. Now, we're going to get into that more tomorrow as part of Throwback Thursday. But for now, we'll mention Fred McGriff at first base. Now, you can have Roberto Alomar at second base. Personally, I put the O-Dog. I put Orlando Hudson at second base. He was just so enjoyable, so fun. Doesn't have any of the off field concerns that we ended up finding out about Roberto Alomar. So for me, I've got Orlando Hudson as my second baseman. Ed Sprague as my third baseman. Everydayers will know Ed Sprague is a name that's come up a few times. The Touch 'em All Joe home run, obviously in 1993. Obviously, that's the highlight of home runs in Blue Jay franchise history. But that Ed Sprague 2-run pinch hit home run that would win Game 2 of the 92 World Series, where the Blue Jays were staring being down 2-0 right in the face. And Everydayers, do you remember we deep dived this too? It was like 5 or something. Like it was a super small number of teams in World Series history that have been down 2-0 went on to win the World Series. So the Blue Jays in that Game 2 of that World Series, remember they lost Game 1 of 92 World Series. They lost that 3-1 at Atlanta, and they were down by a run at Atlanta in Game 2. Atlanta had their closer, Jeff Reardon, in there. Derek Bell, we're going to mention in a minute here, came off the bench for an epic pinch hit. He drew a walk in a sensational at-bat. He did a great job. And then Ed Sprague, also pinch hitting, hit the first pitch he saw from Jeff Reardon. He saw the epic at-bat that Derek Bell had with Reardon. Prior to his at-bat, he knew Reardon was going to try to get ahead of him with a fastball for strike one, and Sprague was ready to attack it. Blue Jays would win that game. Massive. I've always said, if Ed Sprague does not hit that home run in Game 2 of the 1992 World Series, does the Touch 'em All Joe home run even happen? Because remember now, I don't think the Blue Jays in 93 are the defending champions in 92 if Ed Sprague doesn't hit that home run. And if the Blue Jays aren't the defending champions going into 1993, does Dave Stewart definitely want to be here? Does Paul Molitor definitely want to be here? The guys that they brought in, because those are guys that wanted to be part of a team that was going for a repeat, someone who had shown they can be a championship team, right? Paul Molitor looking for that first World Series championship. So Ed Sprague, massive in Toronto Blue Jay franchise history. He's the third baseman because he played for the Padres. Again, could have Tony Fernandez here, but I'm going to stick Alex Gonzalez. Alex Gonzalez, wow, he was a defensive whiz for the Toronto Blue Jays, played a little bit for the San Diego Padres as well. He's probably best known for that whole Steve Bartman, right? He was part of the Steve Bartman debacle with the Chicago Cubs when Moises Alou was going to catch that foul ball. You know the whole Steve Bartman thing, which, I mean, side note, I feel horrible for Steve Bartman. I think he's got a beyond bad reputation from that, and it's really negatively affected his life. But yeah, so I've got Alex Gonzalez as the shortstop. At the catcher spot, there's so many to choose from that we actually have like a Buck Martinez, Ernie Witt scenario. We have one right-handed catcher that's going to face the lefties, and we have a left-handed hitting catcher that's going to face the righties. Benito Santiago, Greg Myers. Love it. And Greg Myers is used to the to that platoon, right? Greg Myers was the left-handed hitting catcher when Pat Borders was the right-handed hitting catcher. So I love the catcher situation. And of course, the DH, we already mentioned him earlier. How could it be anybody but Matt Stairs? How could it be anybody but Matt Stairs, right? Of course. Now, in the outfield, this is amazing. We have 4 outfielders, all 4. Again, played for the Blue Jays, played for the Padres. All 4 figured prominently in the 92 and the 93 World Series for the Toronto Blue Jays. Obviously, Joe Carter's one of them. Again, going to deep dive that more tomorrow. Dave Winfield. Dave Winfield played 22 seasons, spent the first 8 of those seasons as a San Diego Padre. He would spend season 19 of his 22 seasons in 1992 with the champion Toronto Blue Jays. To this day, he'll tell you that was the most fun he ever had in a season. 22 seasons, his one with the Toronto Blue Jays is his most fun. And did he leave a mark? He was awesome with the Padres as the Blue Jays, again, just one season. But that Winfield wants noise. I mean, the atmosphere at the Rogers Center that has become so incredible over the years, Dave Winfield sort of coaxed that out. You know, the Toronto Blue Jay fan base is Canadians, right? We're a little milder mannered than that, right? But he had to bring that animal, that ferocious noise-making crowd out of us. You remember, if you're old enough to remember, the Winfield wants noise. That was the cover of the paper. Winfield wants noise. It was in the World Series. It said, hey, 50,000 plus at the Rogers at Skydome, then I shouldn't be able to hear myself think. I want noise. And then the Winfield wants noise was born. And of course, talk about Ed Sprague's big home run in game 2. Well, do the Blue Jays even win that World Series if Dave Winfield doesn't deliver that extremely clutch 2-run double down the left field line? Remember that? Snuck it right past Terry Pendleton, Braves third baseman. That was off Charlie Liebrandt, Braves veteran lefty. So it was veteran versus veteran. Dave Winfield shoots the double. It's a 2-run double, and the Blue Jays, that was in game 6. That was the game-winning hit in the 11th inning as the Blue Jays win their first ever World Series championship. Ricky Henderson, didn't I tell you? It's an epic outfield, and they all have to do with the championship teams. So Ricky Henderson, he played just over 2 seasons with the Padres, now stole 91 bases for them, and that was several years after he stole 22 bases in 44 games for the 1993 Toronto Blue Jays. And everydayers will know we've talked about Ricky's contributions to the 93 Blue Jays before. If you just look at the numbers on the surface, you're probably going to walk away a little underwhelmed. I mean, not the stolen base numbers. 44 games he played as a Blue Jay, he had 22 steals. I mean, that's awesome. That's incredible. But really just the batting average wasn't there, but he worked walks. The on base was there. He scored big runs. In the World Series, he had big hits as well. Ricky Henderson was a massive contributor to the 1993 repeat champion Toronto Blue Jays. I want to shout out Jose Cruz Jr. as well. He could be the 4th outfielder here because he played for the Blue Jays for a while, and then over the course of his last 6 seasons, he was all over the place. He played for 7 different teams over his last 6 seasons. San Diego was one of them. But I'm going to have Derek Bell as the 4th outfielder. And again, this directly speaks to the 92 and 93 champions. Derek Bell was the 4th outfielder for the 92 World Series champions. Blue Jays were up 3-1 at home, Rogers Center, last game at Skydome at the time, last game at the Skydome. Then it went back to Atlanta for game 6 and game 7. Blue Jays were up 3-1. And before the game, I was at that game. And before the game, the camera on the Jumbotron there panned the Blue Jay bench. And then it got to Derek Bell, and he held up a sign, handwritten sign he had made that said, "Tonight's the night." And the place went ballistic. You couldn't hear yourself think, because if the Jays had won that game, they clinched the World Series right there. Well, Lonnie Anderson would hit an opposite field home run, 3-run shot off of Jack Morris early in that game to show that tonight, in fact, was not the night. But anyway, Derek Bell, part of that 92 World Series team. Then in 93, in the offseason, he gets traded for Darren Jackson with the Mets. Trade with the Mets for Darren Jackson. Darren Jackson was going to be the 4th outfielder for the 93 Blue Jays, but he really struggled early on. And in New York, the Mets' brand new shortstop, Tony Fernandez, new to the Mets at that time, it was his first season with the Mets, he was really struggling. So the Blue Jays and Mets end up making a trade, Darren Jackson for Tony Fernandez. Did that work out? Tony Fernandez would hit over 300 for the Blue Jays in the rest of that season, and his 9 RBIs that season in the World Series for the Blue Jays, that's a record for most RBIs in a World Series for a shortstop. Did that trade work out? My goodness. How about the pitching staff? David Wells is our ace. Boomer Wells, he pitched for the Blue Jays in 89, 91, and 92, and pitched for the Padres in 2006. Like, David Wells was a big deal for both of these franchises. Woody Williams, 5 seasons in the majors. His 15 season. He had a lot of time in the majors. His first 6 seasons were with the Blue Jays. Now, would you believe Woody Williams is one of only 18 pitchers in baseball history to beat every single major league team? I think that's pretty epic. Now, in 1998, he was traded for Joey Hamilton, traded to San Diego for Joey Hamilton. That's going to be, hey, that's our next rotation guy. So we have David Wells, we have Woody Williams, we have Joey Hamilton. I've got Brandon Morrow in the rotation. Yes, for the most part of his career, Brandon Morrow was a reliever, a closer at times as well. But he started a lot of games over the course of his career as well, started for the Blue Jays and started games for the Padres. So I've got Brandon Morrow in there. And rounding out the rotation, I've got Matt Latos. Now, Matt Latos was a 9-year veteran. He ended his career in 2017 with the Blue Jays. He was trying to have sort of like a reclamation project, and it's too bad it didn't work out because Matt Latos, previous to that, he had some injuries in that really derailed his career, but he was looking really good early on in his career, had a few really good seasons to open up his career with the San Diego Padres. So the Padres and the Blue Jays for Matt Latos, that was the bookends of his career. Started with the Padres, ended with the Blue Jays. Was awesome with the Padres, not so much with the Blue Jays. Now, how about in the bullpen? Let's start with Joaquin Benoit. Do you remember Joaquin Benoit? Joaquin Benoit, the veteran, he was a reliever for the Padres in 2014 and 2015. In 2016, found themselves on the Toronto Blue Jays. Remember, 2016 Toronto Blue Jays, that's a playoff team. Did Joaquin Benoit contribute to the 2016 Toronto Blue Jay playoffs? Well, he made 25 appearances for the Jays. And on September 11th, 2016, David Ortiz hit a solo home run off of Joaquin Benoit. That's it. 25 appearances for the veteran Benoit for the playoff 2016 Blue Jays. That solo home run against David Ortiz, that's the only run he allowed. Is that getting the job done? Tip of the cap to the veteran there. Now, of course, we mentioned him earlier. Of course, Paul Quantrill's in our bullpen. Aaron Loup is in our bullpen. Am I allowed to have Kirby Yates in there? It definitely feels like it's cheating, right? I mean, he did really well. He led the league in saves one year as a San Diego Padre, then got hurt. The Blue Jays brought him in to see if he could get healthy. He didn't get healthy. He never threw a pitch for the Toronto Blue Jays, but collected a paycheck for the Toronto Blue Jays. So does that count, or am I cheating there? You let me know if Kirby Yates counts or not. I've got Daniel Hudson in the back of that bullpen, and my closer, Randy Myers. Now, Randy Myers, this is another story, really cool story, really interesting story anyway, in my opinion, between the Padres and the Blue Jays. So that's going to be part of Throwback Thursday. So we're deep diving that epic trade, Tony Fernandez, Fred McGriff from Toronto to the Padres, Roberto Alomar, Joe Carter from the Padres to Toronto. Did that work out? My goodness. But we're also going to look at what happened with Randy Myers. I think it's an interesting story. Now, coming up on the Locked On Blue Jay podcast, with the trade deadline rapidly approaching, we'll start to look at what the Toronto Blue Jays could be, and dare I say should be, looking for. But first, I wanted to talk about a new sponsor we've got, fairly new at this point anyway, Sleeper. Want the chance to win more money with less picks? Well, head to Sleeper, where you can win up to 100 times your money on just 2 or more fantasy baseball picks. Sleeper is a fantasy sports plus real money gaming app focused on bringing people together through sports and gaming. Sleeper's become the fastest organically growing fantasy platform in the world, over 5 million users in 2022 alone, while earning some of the highest levels of engagement per user in the industry. At Sleeper, it's not just about sports, it's about building personal connections and lasting memories. On Sleeper, you can swing for the fences with up to 100 times payout. All you have to do is choose between 2 or more players that you like and select the more or the less of their stat categories. Categories like home runs, strikeouts, hits, and much more, of course, right? Get the picks right, you could win big. There's a built-in group chat functionality that I appreciate as well, where you can see and copy your group's picks with the tap of a button, and your entries can be made in like 30 seconds or less. It's really actually quite easy, and important to me, they have safe and fast withdrawals. Use the promo code LOCKEDON, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. Third and final segment, we are T-minus 2 weeks. We're within 2 weeks now of the trade deadline, so it's go time to start having these conversations and start really paying attention to the trade market. I'm going to start today with a need. I know it's very, very ironic to say that the Blue Jays really need a right-handed bat that can hit left-handed pitching, because for the last several seasons, it seems like all the Blue Jay fan base has been talking about is that we need a left-handed bat to hit the righties. Well, now it's ironically the other way around. The Blue Jays are 9-7 this season versus left-handed pitchers. Now, the Blue Jays were the worst team in baseball last season versus lefties. They were 12-18. I think that literally, if I remember correctly, I think literally the Washington Nationals had a worse record than that, but the Washington Nationals were one of the worst teams in the league last season. Let's put it this way then, of contending teams last season, not only were the Blue Jays the worst against lefties, they were by far the worst against lefties. 9-7 this season. It's a huge improvement, yes, but the Yankees are 10-7. against lefties. The Red Sox are 17-10 against lefties. The Tampa Bay Rays are 13-5 against lefties. The Orioles 20-10 against lefties. So the rest of the American League East combined 60-32 against lefties. The rest of the American League East is smashing lefties and winning consistently against lefties this season. That 16-32 record, that's a 652 winning percentage. That's a team that's on pace to win 106 games for a season. I mean, the rest of the AL East is smashing lefties. Blue Jays need to pick that up. Dalton Varsho, 15 for 58. That's a 259 batting average against lefties. Now, ironically, that's, worlds, eons better than his 205 against righties. But all 12 of Varsho's home runs have come against righties. Brandon Belt, just 3 for 18 against lefties. Kevin Biggio, 2 for 16 against lefties. That's a combined 147 batting average. The Toronto Blue Jays lefties, outside of Kevin Kiermaier, outside of Kevin Kiermaier. Sorry, Kiermaier has been legit. Kiermaier 16 for 49. That's a 327 batting average with a 365 on base against lefties. We're not looking to take our bats away from Kevin Kiermaier. He has been really good against lefties, but the rest of the lefties against lefties, rest of the left-handed hitters against left-handed pitchers, just 20 for 92. That's a 217 batting average, 0 home runs. You see the need. You see the need for some pop, right? Someone that can come in and hit a left-handed pitcher. Thought it might be Jordan Luplow, but he didn't really get a chance for the Blue Jays. It doesn't look like they believe in him. A lot of people want it to be Nelson Cruz. Nelson Cruz, he's got a 666 OPS this season versus lefties. Over the course of Cruz's career, he's been excellent against lefties. Yes, these last couple of years though, he's 43. Since he hit his 40s, no, he's slowed way down. We do not want Nelson Cruz. My top choice, and this is big game hunting here, but I would love to see Lane Thomas. He's out there in Washington. He's hitting over 300 on the season. He's got a lot of home runs. He's hitting almost 400 against lefties. He's smashing lefties, and his OPS against lefties is over 1,000. Now, Lane Thomas will cost you something like that. It'll be a bit of a trade for the Toronto Blue Jays, but it's my number one hope. Tommy Pham could certainly be serviceable here in this spot because the Mets have certainly, embarrassingly bowed out of their race. Tommy Pham hitting 271 with 9 home runs on the season. Now, 7 of those 9 home runs have been against lefties. His OPS is just under 900 against lefties, and his career on base percentage is 388 against lefties. Tommy Pham, he's a bit of a you-know-what, but he may be the cure for what ails this Blue Jays team against lefties. I would be calling the Oakland A's to see what they want for Brent Rooker. Brent Rooker's got 16 home runs this season. 6 of those were against lefties. He's got an OPS just under 900 against lefties. And this Oakland A's organization is in shambles. They're an absolute mess. They're an organization that you could maybe take for a ride on a trade here. So I would absolutely be reaching out to Oakland about Brent Rooker. I know this is funny to say. I know this, but Teo and Lourdes, to be honest with you, but Teo's got 15 home runs this season. 6 of those are against lefties. He's hitting 300 against lefties. He's got an 870 OPS against lefties. Now, I hear a lot of people talking about, Seattle wouldn't trade him. They'd be embarrassed to trade him. But I don't think Seattle would be embarrassed at all. Seattle needs to conduct business. They made the trade. Remember, they traded Eric Swanson. They weren't even using Eric Swanson at the end of last season. The Mariners were dealing from a position of strength. They had a lot of really good relievers. So they were dealing from a position of strength. I absolutely think that they know they're not going to re-up with Teo long-term, so they could definitely be looking to trade him at the trade deadline to create a trade tree to try to get some more assets in there, and the Blue Jays could be involved in that. I don't think it would be that they would consider that embarrassing or anything along those lines because this is a player they were going to be done with at the end of the season anyway, and they acquired him by dealing from a position of strength. So I would definitely be looking at Teo. What are your thoughts here? First of all, this is where I've started. This is where I've started as the number one area that the Blue Jays need. We'll get into starting pitching. We'll get into other things as we get towards the trade deadline. But I think the priority is what we're looking at right here. A right-handed bat that can hit well against left-handed pitching. Do you agree? First of all, do you even agree that that's an area the Jays need to improve on? And would you agree with my assessment that this is the top need they need to improve on? Or have you got something else on your mind? Please drop that comment. I definitely want to hear from you. Now, that's a wrap for Wednesday's Locked On Blue Jays. Reminder, you can catch tonight's game on SiriusXM and keep it locked on the Locked On Podcast Network and check out Sully hosting Locked On MLB. This week, I have a really exciting announcement about a live event that I'll be co-hosting in September with Scott from the Walk-Off Podcast. It's going to be absolutely amazing. I can't wait to bring you that information. That's coming later this week. For now, for today, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Go Jays, go, and we'll talk tomorrow.